Hello all. Very good morning. I hope everybody is safe and is in good health. And so, in last class, we started with classical evolutionism, the theory. The first scholar we have completed, that is E.B. Tyler, Edward Brunei Tyler. And today we will complete the other scholar, that is L.H. Morgan, Louis Henry Morgan. Okay. So before we begin with L.H. Morgan, I just would like to give you a brief glimpse of what we have seen in the last class, what E.B. Tyler actually wanted to say. So E.B. Tyler, his contributions. The first, his contribution was a book that is Anahuac, that is about the Mexican tribes and their lifestyle. Okay, and then the next contribution was the book Primitive Culture, in which he defines culture as complex whole consisting of or including knowledge, belief, customs, moral, arts, laws, and other capabilities that a man learns as a member of society, being a member of the. Okay, so this is the culture definition that he gave. Okay, then he gives the idea of psychic unity of mankind, which he basically derived from the idea of uniformitarianism. Okay, uniformitarianism say basically he concluded the idea of psychic unity of mankind. In fact, I just forgot to mention in the last class, this psychic unity of mankind also was not the original idea that was given by E.B. Tyler. I just forgot to mention, just pardon me for that. This psychic unity of mankind was first talked by a scholar that is whose name is Adolf Bastian. He is a German scholar, Bastian, and he was the one who gave the idea of psychic unity of mankind. And on the basis of his study, he actually studied a particular way of worshipping that is called as shamanism, wherein there is we call it in our local name as Ojha, Bhupa, or some Jadu Tona Wale. So this shamanism he found was universal in all the cultures across the globe. When he studied shamanism, he found that it is present in every society, and on the basis of which he concluded that yes, shamanism is something a cultural universal present in all the societies, and yes, that's why shamanism. That's why it's a proof of psychic unity of mankind. People think similarly in the similar problem, and this idea was also copied by E.B. Tyler, a psychic unity of mankind. And then the next idea was that of survivals. Okay, these are those practices which are or customs or opinions or ideas which are carried on due to force of habit, and they do not have any contemporary relevance. So these survivals are the proof of evolution. And then the last one, the evolution of religion, wherein he says that religion evolved from animism to polytheism to monotheism. Animism is the idea of belief in soul. That is, he says that animism arose due to speculation of dreams, trances, and that people used to dream, and they used to think about or interpret or give a particular idea of dreams. So when they thought why the person who is dead is coming into my dream, what's the logic of it? So they imagine two existence or two existence of an individual. One is the physical visible body, okay, and the second is the psychic invisible soul. And he also says that in the dreams you also imagine this non-living objects that are not around you. Okay, so then people started to imagine that even the non-living objects also had soul. So every object in this world has its unique soul, and this belief was called as animism. And later, when they started assuming that the spirits have the power to control or overpower us, they started worshipping them. And then what happened? They started believing in polytheism. And with time, came monotheism. Okay. Now, yesterday, a student asked me that has he talked about if after uh, monotheism or monotheism will basically die out after science, since because he has copied from Auguste Comte. If you remember, Auguste Comte talked about three stages: theological stage, metaphysical stage, and the scientific or the positive stage. And he has copied from Auguste Comte, E.B. Tyler. So, a student texted me and asked whether he has talked about that after monotheism, will even the religion will die out or science will overpower religion. Actually, these are very contradictory statement of Tyler. Tyler has self contradicted himself, wherein he says that yes, monotheism will basically uh, overpower polytheism, or monotheism is the most refined form of religion. And in some statement he says that yes, science will replace the religion. But later on, whenever he talks about, we will see this in religion very much. So basically, when he is asked to compare about whether science will overpower or replace religion, so he says actually that monotheism is more suitable to exist with science. Okay. Polytheism is not suitable for science. Monotheism is suitable. Monotheism can exist with science. Basically, he wanted to show his culture, the culture of Europe or the culture of Britain, the culture to which he belonged, as the most superior one. And that was monotheism, because most of the European people, they were Christians, and Christians, it's a monotheistic religion, and Europe was the pioneer in inventions and discoveries and all that stuff. So he just wanted to show that yes, monotheism can adjust with science. So and that's why monotheism will or can coexist with science. Okay. So in this case, he says that science will not replace monotheism, but any other form of religion, be it polytheism or be it animism, science will actually end this. So this is something we'll again see in religion chapter, the chapter after unit number 6 that we are reading right now. Okay. So this is the basic summary of E.B. Tyler, what he has said. So till now, any doubt, or shall we start with the new scholar? Please be quick, write yes or no, so that we can move ahead. Any doubt? No. Okay, good then. The next scholar is Louis Henry Morgan, or L.H. Morgan. L.H. Morgan, actually, he was a lawyer by profession. Okay, he was, and when Tyler was doing or discovering anthropology or anthropological theory in Britain, he was an American who was doing a similar kind of work in America. So that's why they both together are called as the founding father. And in some way or the other, they were thinking on the same lines. And the reason is not that Alex Morgan was influenced by Tyler or vice versa. Why? Because the text or the philosophical trend at that point of time was very much similar. They both were influenced by enlightenment, the idea of progress, reason will lead to the progress of mankind, and they were also reading the same kind of text. Okay, the influences were very much similar, and that is why they were also talking on the similar lines. Okay, so we'll come to this. So when Tyler was doing his anthropology or giving his anthropological theory in Britain, in the same time there rose an individual in America also who will be considered as the father of American anthropology. Okay, and he is L.H. Morgan, Louis Henry Morgan, and he basically was a lawyer. And in 1842, actually, just to tell you his story, 1842, he was the one who got admission to the bar, not that bar that Punjabis go, but the bar of the lawyers or association of lawyers. Okay, you have to have a license in order to practice the bar. So He basically in 1842 he got admission to the lawyers association or the lawyers bar, but at that point of time, unfortunately, America was undergoing economic crisis. Okay, you must have read about it. 1829, the American crisis starts and it extends for so long. It's a very big depression or recession. Okay, so America was undergoing a very big economic crisis, and due to which he didn't had any kind of job or any kind of cases. Okay, so then he decided, ki, okay, I should move to anthropology. Not in such a trivial manner, but yes, one thing you should be very much inspired from him is like the lawyer can become an anthropologist. Okay, a person with a law background also can become an anthropologist. So I'm just so he basically, since he was not having a job, what he did was he basically entered into a social club, which all the elites at that point of time they had membership to, and the name of that social club was Order of Gordian Knot. Okay, these are the such kind of social club that were very much famous at that point of time in America. So here in this social club, what they used to do was they used to discuss about Greco-Roman myths and mythologies. Greco-Roman myth and mythology. So Greco-Roman myth and mythology is not of any relevance for us. But just to tell you why they used to deal with this Greco-Roman myths, because one thing that similar kind of myth were found across the globe, and they wanted to understand that what's the reason for it. So they used to discuss it. Okay, acha, such similar thing is also in our mythology, and it is mentioned in Greek mythology as well. So how they are related to each other. But later on, this club was renamed as the Great Order of Iroquois. Okay, or sorry, now the Grand Order of Iroquois. And this was on the suggestion of Morgan only. Grand Order of Iroquois. Iroquois, this is the basic term that I need to explain to you. Uh, Iroquois is a participative confederacy confederacy that is found in southeastern Canada or northern New York State in America. Okay, it's a part of US. Okay, so what happened that 6 tribes who controlled a particular territory, 6 tribes who controlled a particular territory in North America, in US, they basically came together and they created a federation. Okay, and this federation is collectively called as Iroquois. Okay, so it's a group of 6 tribes, not a single tribe, but a group of 6 tribes. So one among them is Mohawk, another is Seneca, the another is like Oneida, and so on. So you don't have to remember this 6. I'm just telling you that Iroquois is a group of 6 tribes who came together to create a confederacy. That means these tribes were holding 6 pieces of land. They decided, okay, now we will be together collectively recognized as Iroquois, and the US government also gave them the recognition of Iroquois. So basically, in the club, that is the Grand Order of Iroquois, they used to discuss about the Iroquois tribes and their practices, their culture, their behavior, their language, their myth, their way of life, their food, their dress. Okay, all the kind of things about the group of Iroquois tribes. It was very attracting, or people were very much curious to know about them, and that's why this grand club used to discuss about them. And here what happened, There was a person named as Ellie Parker. Ellie Parker, he belonged to this group of tribes, Seneca. Okay, and he was also pursuing law. He was pursuing law and was studying in some college. So after his degree, he was also he came in contact with L.H. Morgan, and L.H. Morgan, when he came to know that he belongs to Seneca nation or Seneca tribe, what he did was he basically called him and said, ki, okay, there is a club that is the Grand Order of Iroquois. We are very much interested to know about you people, culture, your practices, your way of life, customs, dresses, and all that stuff. So, would you please be kind enough to come and speak there and tell us about yourself, tell us about your community, tell us about your problems. Oh, sorry, tell us about your customs. Okay. So, Ellie Parker was very much what you can say inclined or very much interested in doing so. He took it like an honor given to him. So he went there, and what happened actually, instead of talking about the culture, customs, and languages, he talked about the problem that is being faced by the Seneca Nation people. Okay, or the problem that is being faced by the Iroquois people. Okay, the confederacy of the tribes of US. Okay, and so he explained these problems in a lot of detail, mein, how their land is being snatched, how the capitalists, they are now trying to push them beyond their territory, how their culture is being threatened, and how English medium education or the Catholic education is being imposed upon them, and their culture is being destroyed. So they are feeling a kind of vulnerable and marginalized people. So this Ellie Parker actually spoke about all that stuff, and this basically uh, influenced or what you can say uh, persuaded Morgan to uh, go for helping Iroquois. So he decided that okay, I'll help the Iroquois people. Actually, the reason was Morgan was jobless. He was not having a job. So he thought, चलो यही कुछ काम कर लेते हैं. Here only I might get some help. And this basically was the reason that why later Morgan even became a state senator. Okay. Why? Because he used to talk about the rights of the indigenous people here, and later on he used this idea to fight the election, and he got a lot of support also. And later he became a politician also. He was recognized uh, in US. He had a powerful control, or he was the powerful voice of the indigenous people. Okay, so Iroquois, he studied he started, in order to solve their problem, the first thing that he will do is he need to understand the Iroquois people. He needs to study them. He needs to uh, have a basic idea about them. So what he did was he took the help of Ellie Parker and went to Iroquois region. Okay, Iroquois region, and started basically the study of Iroquois. So when he went there, so the Ellie Parker, he acted as a language translator because he was not aware about the language of the Iroquois people. So Ellie helped him to translate. So he asked some questions, and this was translated into English by his friend Ellie. Okay, so he wrote the first book. The name of the book is The League of Iroquois by Morgan. And this book was the detailed study or scientific study of this people of Iroquois. Every customs, practices, belief, religion, language, dress, everything was written in very positive manner or very scientific manner. It was a kind of encyclopedia of Iroquois, and it is said to be the first scientific literature in anthropology. So this basically was a kind of introductory step or introductory contribution of L.H. Morgan to anthropology, and this was the beginning of journey of L.H. Morgan into the field of into the discipline of anthropology. Okay, so the League of Iroquois. And while studying the Iroquois people, he came across the first thing that he stumbled upon, or he was very much interested in, was kinship. Okay, so what is kinship and kinship terminology specifically? What is kinship? Kinship means our relatives. Okay, kin means our relatives, and kinship means how these relatives are organized with each other, and what are the rules or of conduct with our relatives. So kinship basically means how we are connected to the people through blood or through marriage, and how these relationships are related or regulated. Okay, and kinship terminology means how we call our relatives. What are the terms that we are using for our relatives? That is called as the kinship terminology. So he wrote in great detail about the kinship terminology of the Iroquois. And later, what actually happened out of the blue, what actually happened was that he, once he had studied the kinship terminology of the Iroquois, he also one day, one another tribe in the southern part of US, that is Ojibwa. He came across them, Ojibwa, and he read their literature and the kinship terminology. And what he found was that kinship terminology of the Ojibwa people is very similar to that of the kinship terminology of the people of Iroquois. So, what was the similarity or what was the kinship terminology of Iroquois that made him very much trusted in them, or what that created a lot of curiosity in him was that in Iroquois people, what actually happens is that mother, mother's sister, and father's sister, they were called by the same name. Father, father's brother, and father's sister. Sorry, mother's brother. They were called by the same name. I hope you are getting my point. Mother, mother, sister, and father, sister. That is Mummy, Masi, and Bua. This is the three names that we call them. But there, they were called by the same name, that they were all referred as mother. Okay, mother, mother, sister, that is Masi, and father, sister. Even Bua was called as mother or was equivalent as mother. Okay, and the same way, father, Chachaji, or mother's brother, that is Mama. They were also called by the same name as father only. And this was very interesting thing he has observed for the very first time, Iroquois. And then he found that in Ojibwa also, this is the same kind of practice they are doing. So what's the reason for it? How to relate it? So he says that he basically says that this kinship terminology is something that is or that is a treasure house, or that is a storehouse of the past of this society. I'll explain you why he said this statement, he gave this statement. But he says that this kinship terminology, by this studying of this kinship terminology, we can understand what kind of society or what kind of practices were there in this society, and due to which this kind of kinship terminology has come. So he became very much interested in kinship terminology, studying the kinship terminology. Uh, so what he did was he sent a question. He prepared a questionnaire. Questionnaire is a set of questions, and he sent that questionnaire to 200 places across the world through missionaries, through diplomats, or some other mechanism. 200 questionnaires were sent across the world to study or to fill it in detail. What are the ways of calling the people, okay, of different communities across different places in the world? So this questionnaire, when the answers of this questionnaire came back, so then he, by compiling the data of this questionnaire, he wrote a book, and the name of the book is the system of consanguinity and affinity of the human family. This is the name of the book, System of Consanguinity and Affinity of the Human Family. Okay, he wrote this book, and in this book, he says that uh, there are two types of kinship terminology across the globe. Across the globe, you will find that two broader categories of kinship terminology are there. One is classificatory. The second is descriptive. Okay. Now, what is classificatory and what is descriptive? So, he says that in classificatory kinship terminology, multiple relatives are clubbed together and will be called by the same name. Okay, in classificatory, multiple relatives will be clubbed together and will be called by the same name. Okay, this is what is classificatory. Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Okay, we are moving at our own pace. So, is there any problem here till now? Please write yes, no, no. Okay, thanks. Now, so in classificatory, people are called by the same name. Multiple relatives might be called by the same name. So, on the basis of this, you can understand that the Iroquois community, the people are called by the same name. So, this is a kind of classificatory kinship terminology. So, there is somebody who said, can you explain the slide again? So, what topic, rather than the slide, can you please tell me the topic, Divya? Waiting. What part you didn't understood? I believe it's the classificatory and descriptive kinship terminology. Okay, there is a network issue from your side, so didn't hear it. Okay, okay. Okay, so basically, when he sent the questionnaire to people across the world in order to record what kind of kinship terminology exists across the world, one was sent to India as well. I just forgot to mention. Uh, so he, after the data that he got, most of the people did not filled it, but whatever data he got in return, he wrote a book, The System of Consanguinity and the Affinity of the Human Family, in which he says that there are two types of kinship terminology. One, that is the classificatory kinship terminology, the other is the descriptive. In classificatory, he says that multiple relatives are clubbed together and they will be called by the same name. And specifically here, you will find that the people will be called by the same name as you call the family member of nuclear family. Okay, so for example, in Iroquois, the father, father's brother, and mother's brother, they are called by the same name. And in mother, mother, sister, and father, sister, Ammi, Masi, and Bua, they are also called by the same name. So basically, that's a kind of classificatory kinship terminology, he says. Okay, and the descriptive is wherein relatives are not called by the same name or they have distinct name. The relations are very much clear and every relative has a distinct name, and specifically none of the relative will be called by the same name as you call the nuclear family member. So you will have only one mother, only one person who will be called as your mother, only one person who will be called as your father, and only one person who will be your brother or sister. Okay, none other than that. Okay, so relatives are not called by the same name specifically. Anybody will not be called as the same name as a nuclear family member. Okay, no, you will be calling mummy only to one person, not like Iroquois that mother, sister, and also father, sister will be called by the same. So descriptive means all the relatives have different name, okay, or the kinship terminology for the relatives is different. So what's the sense of it? Why are we reading in this evolutionary scheme? Once he divided the kinship terminology into two types, classificatory and descriptive, then what he did was he says that classificatory is the kind of kinship terminology that is related to the uncivilized people. The people who are uncivilized, the people who do not have proper technology or proper literacy or something like that, or the people of the past, primitive people, prehistoric people, they are using this classificatory kinship terminology. And as we civilize, you will move to descriptive form of kinship terminology. Okay, the moment you civilize, as we progress from uncivilized to civilized people, the kinship terminology will move from classificatory to descriptive. This is the first idea that he gave, that kinship terminology evolves from classificatory to descriptive. I hope this is clear to you. Anything if you want to ask? Okay. Anything? So I would like to read one statement, particularly one statement, double quote that was given by Morgan in his book, that is System of Consanguinity and Affinity of the Human Family. This statement says that in the system of relationship of the great families of mankind, some of the oldest memorials of human thought and experience are deposited and preserved. This is a very beautiful statement, very deep statement that he has talked about. I'll read it once again. In the systems of relationship of the great families of mankind, some of the oldest memorials of human thought and experience are deposited and preserved. Okay, so what does it means? He says that the ancient practices that we used to do in the past has actually shaped up the kinship terminology, and the kind of kinship terminology a particular society has right now is something derived from the practices that it used to do in the past. So what does it mean that mother and mother sister will be called by the same name, or father and father's brother will be called by the same name? It says that at that point of time, or at some point of time, these people were having promiscuous sex relationship. Promiscuous means brother and sisters are mating with each other and the parentage is not clear. So he says that this classificatory kinship terminology, people will practice or used to practice promiscuous sex, due to which they have indeterminate parentage. Promiscuous sex and indeterminate parentage. Is it clear? Why they are calling mother and mother sister and father sister with the same name, and why they are calling father's brother and mother's brother with the same name? It's because the brother and sister, at some point of time when the society was not developed so much, even the brothers and sisters were having sexual relationship, and that is why, which is called as promiscuity. Okay, and that is why that the parentage is not fixed or not completely determinate. So what happens is that when brothers and sisters are having sexual relationship, the child does not know who actually the father is. or when a woman is having multiple partner, it's very difficult to know who actually the father is. Okay, so that is why, and the brothers and sisters were living together and having sexual relationship, due to which they have some kind of classificatory kinship terminology. Multiple relatives are clubbed together and called by the same name. So he says that promiscuous sex and indeterminate parentage is the relationship, and this is what he means, that maybe now they might not be having incest relationship or promiscuous relationship, but this kind of practice actually emerged. Why? Because some years back or some centuries back, these people would definitely have been practicing promiscuous sex, and that's why indeterminate parentage is there, and due to which, or maybe right now also they might be doing it, or due to which it is promiscuous sex and indeterminate parentage, and due to which comes classificatory kinship terminology. So he says that these are the people who are uncivilized, and their life is very similar to that kind of animals. Okay, the kind of life that animals live. So in dogs, in other animals, you can easily see that they do not have such kind of incestuous relationship that we right now see. Okay, we cannot marry our sister, or we cannot marry our cousin or something like that. But in dogs, cats, and various other animals, such kind of relationship is not there, that brother sister. Any dog can mate with any cat, or any dog can mate with any other female dog. Okay, or it's not like brother sister. So he compared the people who are practicing the classificatory kinship terminology as the people who are uncivilized, and he says that the condition of the people is akin to inferior animals. That means very similar to similar life like animals. These people are living life similar like animals. No social laws, no regulations regarding sex, marriage, or something, and that is why they are having classificatory kinship terminology. Okay, so this is the idea that he gave. But then coming to descriptive, so he says that due to progress, due to development, what actually happened, that monogamy developed. The marriage, it moved to monogamy or polygamy, and due to which the parentage was very much clear, and they developed this idea of descriptive kinship terminology. I hope it is clear to you. Any doubt till now, or shall I move forward? Any doubt? Please. No. I just want to ask one more thing. So the promiscuous point. So promiscuous means that there is no social regulations regarding sexual conduct. Anybody can have sexual relationship with anyone. Like in animals, there is nothing like you cannot mate with so and so person. Abhi we have in our society, you have to mate with the person who is not related. For example, in Hindu, there is like Gotra ceremony. So you cannot have marriage with the person belonging to same Gotra. They are considered to be brother and sister. Okay, but in classific, the people according to Morgan who practice classificatory kinship terminology, they were very similar to the animals. They used to mate with their brother sister. Okay, so that is why the parentage was not clear who is son and daughter of whom. ये clear था ही नहीं, and that's why they used to call mother sister and father sister with the same name, and father's brother, mother's brother, मतलब मामा चाचा सबको एक ही नाम से बुलाते थे, पापा ही बोलते थे. Okay, why? Because the parentage was not that clear, and brother and sister used to mate with each. Okay, so just let me tell you one incident. Just imagine that one boy and girl who are brother and sister, hypothetical case which is not possible right now in these days, but yes, was practiced even in the past. So when boy and girl who are brother and sister, they have sexual relationship and they give birth to the child, so the boy's father will also be the boy's mama, agreed or not. वो उसका बाप भी है और उसका मामा भी है. Although this might sound very haphazard to you, what sir is talking about right now, it's completely illogical. How can this be possible? But this was the case when we as a human have not developed such kind of society wherein there were rules of sexual conduct or marriage or something like that. It was very common. And then father और मामा और पापा दोनों सेम ही हैं, उनको सेम ही नाम से बुला रहे हो. Agreed or not? I hope now it is clear to you why the classificatory kinship. Okay, Ratan, shall I move forward? Okay, so he says that these people were living life akin to inferior animals, and as we have moved to monogamous marriages, what actually has happened? We have uh, devised a descriptive form of kinship terminology. So we'll see this in somewhat more detail. Okay, so in classificatory, he says that there are three types of kinship terminology. One is Malayan, first one, and the second is Turanian, and the third is Ganovanian. These are the three type of kinship terminology. He says Malayan, Turanian, and Ganovanian. So Malayan is the kinship terminology of Hawaii people living in Hawaii, and also Maori. You must have heard about this community, Maoris. They are living in New Zealand. You must have heard about a famous Hollywood actor or a wrestler, that is Rock, and also Roman Reigns. So they belong to this community, Maori. Okay, so Hawaii and Maoris. Then comes Turanian. So Turanian are the people who Chinese, Japanese, and then Ganovanian. So they are native North Americans. Iroquois and all those people he put under Ganovanian. Okay. And then in descriptive, the civilized people, he has three groups. One is Semitic, that is the Arabs. Then Aryans, the people speaking Aryan language, that is European and Sanskrit speaking people. Okay, all the Europeans and Sanskrit speaking people. And the last is Uralian. Uralian people, so like people of Turkey, Turk, and people of USA, he equated them under this kinship terminology. So you can remember this by the name Mathura Gaon. Okay, because these also he says that there is an order in this also. Malayan evolved to Turanian, which evolved to Ganovanian, then Semitic to Aryans, and then Uralian. Okay, so Mathura Gaon evolved to South Africa United. Okay, just to remember this, Mathura Gaon evolved to South Africa United. Just an acronym. Malayan, Turanian, Ganovanian, then South Africa means Semitic, Aryans, and United for Uralian. Okay, so this is the sequence of kinship terminology evolution. That in broader level, when you see classificatory evolved to descriptive. Okay, But in this classificatory also there are three types of classificatory, and the oldest one is that of Malayan, then the Turanian, then the Ganovanian, and in descriptive also Semitic to Aryans to Uralian. This is the order of evolution of kinship terminology. I hope it's clear to you. Is it? Okay, good then. So I would also like to dictate some notes. Just write down. Right. Morgan argued that all the kinship systems could be divided into all the kinship system could be divided into two large groups. Two large groups: descriptive and classificatory. Morgan argued that all the kinship system could be divided into two large groups: descriptive and classificatory. Descriptive systems distinguish between lineal relatives and collateral relatives. Distinguish between lineal and collateral relatives. So before we move forward, just a brief idea ki what is lineal and collateral, you'll understand. So lineal means, like suppose this is the father, this is mother, and here mother has brother and sister, and father has brother and sister. So the chacha and bua, mama and masi. Okay, and then here this is you, suppose. So your lineal relative is with whom you are directly connected, okay, across generations. So your father, grandfather, great grandfather, these are the lineal relatives of yours. Okay, collateral is when you are moving horizontally sidewards, okay, like this. So father, the collateral relative, father is your lineal relative, and collateral is like father's brother, father's sister, mother's brother, mother's sister. These are the collateral relatives. So here in descriptive, it says that the lineal and collateral relatives, like father and father's brother, will have different name. So just write: descriptive system distinguish between lineal and collateral relatives. And in contrast, classificatory systems. Classificatory system treat lineal and collateral kin. Treat lineal and collateral kin as if they are same. As if they are same. Right? In his survey, in his survey, Morgan identified Morgan identified 6 families of kinship systems. 6 families of kinship system. 3 descriptive one, 3 descriptive ones, and the 3 descriptive ones are Semitic, Aryans, and Uralians. Just in bracket you can write Semitic, Aryan, and Uralian. And the 3 classificatory ones. 3 classificatory ones. In bracket you can write Malayan, Turanian, and Ganovanian. Malayan, Turanian, and Ganovanian. Okay. he concludes that the difference between classificatory and descriptive. He concludes that the difference between classificatory and descriptive marks the distinction between civilized and uncivilized. Sorry, marks the difference between uncivilized and civilized, respectively. Marks the difference between uncivilized to civilized. Okay. Next statement, right? Morgan inferred different social relationships. Morgan inferred different social relations from different kinship system, from distinct kinship system, and then arranged them on a continuum. Continuum means a scale of continuity. So what come first, then second, then third, fourth, fifth, sixth, like this. So arrange them on a continuum from most primitive to most civilized. In bracket you can write from promiscuous intercourse to monogamy. From promiscuous course to monogamy. Okay, यहाँ तक तो ठीक था. It was okay till this point of time. But he has to explain that why this evolution has occurred. So he says, okay, promiscuous marriage was there initially, and later the marriage became what you can say as monogamous, one man, one wife, okay, like this. So that is why the kinship became descriptive. Kinship terminology became descriptive. So from promiscuous marriage or promiscuous intercourse to monogamous marriage, this was the reason for evolution of kinship terminology from classificatory to descriptive. Okay, till now it's good and fine. But then the question comes, what inspired, if the people were satisfied or the society was stable at this with promiscuous marriages also, or promiscuous kind of intercourse also, why in the very first place there was a need to move towards monogamous? Are you able to understand this question? That अगर हमारा काम promiscuous society के हिसाब से चल रहा था, so what was the need for monogamy in the very first place? Why people shifted this marriage practice from promiscuous, wherein anybody can mate with anybody else, to monogamous marriage? What was the reason? Are you able to get my point? Are you able to understand this question? Yes or no? So yes, he says कि classificatory to descriptive happened. Why? Because marriage happened from promiscuous, or the mating happened from promiscuous to monogamy. But he was asked कि why in the very first place promiscuous से monogamy की तरफ आना पड़ा. So then he says the very important contribution of Morgan, which actually will later influence even Karl Marx also. So he says the rise of private property. The private property will be the reason why the marriage practices have to be shifted, or the kind of mating that has to happen will be shifted from monogamous. So why the rise of private property? So he says that initially, when we were living in the forest as hunter gatherers, there was nothing like private property. Anything what we had was like just hand to mouth wala survival tha, and we used to collect the food, eat it and sleep. Nothing like property or any houses or land or anything, any money जैसा कुछ चीज तो थी नहीं. Okay, so this private property was absent, the uncivilized phase. But as and when this private property started to rise, it was very difficult to decide who will own the private property. After my death, somebody has to take over my private property. And this started with surplus. When we started cultivation, so it was surplus. Okay, so we had surplus. So initial, it has to basically be divided among somebody. Somebody has to come up and take it. But at that point of time, if parentage is not clear, who is the father of whom or who is the mother of whom, then it becomes very difficult to divide or to inherit anybody's private property. The successor, to decide the successor is very much difficult. So that makes the case for movement towards monogamy, wherein the parentage will becomes clearer and clearer, or to moving towards descriptive form of kinship system, wherein the parentage becomes clearer, wherein this private property can be inherited, or the one who has to inherit the private property will be very much clear. Okay, the relations become more clearer. So this rise of private property is the reason for movement of kinship terminology from classificatory to descriptive. He basically says that when we were in the stage of savagery, there was nothing like private property. Okay, so in that case, what we did was this promiscuous relationship was very much okay. In barbarism, there was some surplus, like in the form of tools or something like this. So it was distributed. It was not that much. So initially, it was buried with means after the person who dies. So it was buried with him, or maybe it will be equally distributed among all the relatives, irrespective of who he is. But later on, land and something like this, it has to be when we started cultivation or when we had like land and private property. So in that case, it cannot be distributed or it cannot be partitioned like this. Such cases, it was very much necessary to know who the actual parents are. And that is why the reason to shift to descriptive form of kinship terminology, which will make it clear. The parentage become determinate, and in that case, it is easy for us to devolve our private properties. Is it clear? The reason that he gave the movement from classificatory to descriptive. Clear? Why and how the private property and division came, sir? Okay. So private property came, initially we were hunter-gatherers, as you must be aware, right? We used to live in the forest, hunt animals, and then survive living in the caves or under the trees. So there was nothing like this. There was nothing like home, agricultural land, but at that point of time, cultivation was also not there. But the moment we started cultivation or domestication of plants and animals, as we progressed, okay, at that point of time, we started to have private property. Means I am cultivating this land, the surplus of food that is coming from this land is owned by me because I have put my effort like there. Okay, then after my death, who is going to control that land? Or who is going to have that surplus of grains that I have cultivated? In that case, it becomes necessary to know who the actual successor will be, and that is why the kinship terminology moves to descriptive one. So private property will come when the person will have surplus. Initially, when we were hunter-gatherers, at that point of time, we didn't have any kind of surplus, hand-to-mouth existence. But agriculture ke saath, we started to have surplus, and that's why the rise of private property. Agreed? Divya? Okay. So this is the idea. He says that classificatory to descriptive will happen due to rise of private property, which will require for clear settlement rights, which will require descriptive form of kinship terminology. That's right. With the rise of private property, there was a need. With the rise of private property, there was a need to develop the rules for its inheritance. There was a need to develop the rules for its inheritance. The settlement of its rights, next statement, the settlement of its rights, that is the rights of the property, and for certainty of its transmission, that is the transmission of private property. For the settlement of its rights and certainty of its transmission, the descriptive kin systems evolve. The descriptive kin system evolves. The descriptive kin system evolve and the nuclear family eventually develops. And the nuclear family individually develops. The family becomes organized. The family becomes organized and individualized by property rights and privileges. By property rights and privileges. Okay, this is the idea of Morgan regarding the kinship terminology. And this idea, let me tell you, will become the foundation of one of the greatest theories in the world, that will be given by Karl Marx, because Karl Marx was the one who will be reading it later on in after 50 years. Okay, and he will be the one who will say that yes, this private property is the cause of exploitation of labor. Okay, when the private property will be uh, evolved, or when the concept of private property comes, there will be the one that will bring hierarchy in the society, that will bring inequality in the society, that will bring social stratification. The person who will control the private property will be at the higher stage. Okay, he calls them the bourgeois or the capitalist, and the one who basically works as a labor, as a proletariat. So he will basically use this idea of private property as a change in the social structure of the society, or as a change in the arrangement of the or organization of the people in the society. Okay, so this Morgan was the one who actually influenced Karl Marx to give his theory, in which he will be using in his book. The book name is The Das Capital. Must have read about it, but that's not required right now. Okay, so this is the first major contribution of L.H. Morgan. Okay, in the book System of Consanguinity and Affinity in the Human Family. So yes, I just forgot to mention the meaning of these two words in the book, that is consanguinity and affinity. Consanguinity means, you must remember, at this word will come multiple times in our syllabus, consanguinity. So con means same, con means same, or sanguine means blood. So consanguinity means the people who are related through blood, or they carry the same blood, or blood relatives, consanguines. Okay, and affinity means the people who are related through marriage. Affine means love. Okay, so the people who are related through marriage. This is consanguinity and affinity. So just remember, in the book he just talks about the system of consanguinity, or means the relation through blood or the relation through marriage, the human family. Okay. Next contribution is his book, one of the magnum opus, that is the Ancient Society. Very important book and very important contribution of L.H. Morgan, the Ancient Society. But I'll move ahead only if you give me a go ahead that everything is clear till now. Or we shall basically have some doubt, or I would love to listen to your doubts. Everything clear? Okay. Shall I move ahead then? Okay, I think it's a yes from you. Ancient society, one of the very important contribution. So in this ancient society, basically he talks about the evolution of society, means how the society has evolved with time and how uh, um, basically with what were the reasons for evolution of the society. We'll come to it. There is a doubt that says that what about evolution among classificatory? Means you are talking about how Malayan, then to Turanian, and then to Ganowanian happened. Okay. Actually, he says that dheere dheere, the private property is not like that, that one day it will come like this. Okay. Gradually, what will happen, he says, for example, that when there are communal husbands or when brothers and sisters are married to each other. So, for example, there are four brothers. Just let me, four brothers, and they have four sisters. They get married to each other, something like this. Okay, and what actually will happen is that they will this is called as communal marriage. So, this in this communal marriage, that this brothers would have to protect their wives from other men. Okay, this brothers will have to protect their wives from other men, and in that case what might happen is that one brother might protect or might take the responsibility of some wife or something like this, and this will kind of create an affinity of one man toward another man. Something like this will happen gradually, and this will eventually lead to changes in the kind of classification or kinship relationship, and later on it will ultimately evolve to monogamous marriages. Okay, so इससे ज़्यादा detail we are not supposed to know. Okay, I hope it's clear to you. Ancient society. So, in ancient society, basically he talks about how society evolves. So he begins this book with a very famous statement or very uh, important statement. I'll explain it to you, but before that, just write is what he says. He says that mankind commenced their career at the bottom of scale. Mankind commenced their career at bottom of scale and work their way up from savagery to civilization through slow accumulation of experimental knowledge. Once again, mankind commenced their career at the bottom of scale. Mankind commenced their way up at bottom of scale and worked their way up from savagery to civilization through slow accumulation of experimental knowledge. So this is, he says that as we acquire knowledge gradually with time, slowly, experimental knowledge, what will happen is we will rise in the stage of cultural evolution. Now the culture will advance. So our movement from savagery to civilization is because of slow accumulation of experimental knowledge. The more we experiment, the more knowledge that we get, the more scientific we become, more we will invent. And he says that different societies across, in this book, different societies across Asia, Europe, Australia, America are at the different stages of evolution based on the amount of experimental knowledge that they have accumulated. So different societies, maybe the society of Australia, it might be at different stage of evolution, and the society of, say, native Indians in America might be at different stage of evolution. So different societies are at different stages of evolution. Okay. So in the same book, in the continuity, he basically, what he does, he says that, just right, savagery, barbarism, and civilization. Savagery, barbarism, and civilization represent well-defined stages, present well-defined stages of cultural development. Savagery, barbarism, and civilization represent well-defined stages of cultural development based on or measured by based on or measured by four sets of achievements, four sets of cultural achievements. So what are the four sets of cultural achievements that he talks about? He says that you can rank the culture into savagery, barbarism, and civilization based on the four sets of cultural achievement. The first one is invention and discoveries. The amount of knowledge they have, the kind of invention they have. Okay. Then the second one is the idea of government. The kind of government they have. Okay, the type of government they have. Then the idea of family. Okay, the idea of family. And the last is the concept of property. And he says that these all are not exclusive, they are linked to each other. But these are the four criteria on the basis of which you can rank a society, whether it is savage, barbaric, or civilization. So, okay, savagery, barbarism, or civilization, based on these four criteria: invention and discoveries, idea of government, idea of family. The last is the concept of property. Okay, and once you have idea of these four criteria of this society, you can rank them. But later on, he says that invention and discoveries, okay, or the technological development, actually, not as the primary cause, means invention and discovery basically is the primary cause or primary factor that will lead to evolution from savagery to barbarism to civilization. Okay, that is the invention and discovery or the technological development. It will basically move the, or it will lead to the cultural advancement of the people. Okay, so this is the four criteria that you should understand. And on the basis of this four criteria, he ranked the people, or he ranked the society on their cultural advancement, on what cultural advancement do they belong to. So basically, he the stages of evolution for Morgan was also savagery to barbarism to civilization, but he divided the stages of savagery and barbarism into lower, middle, and upper savagery, and lower, middle, upper barbarism, and then finally the stage of civilization. So we'll see. Just draw this table with me. So this is the stages of evolution that Morgan explains, that lower savagery, middle savagery, upper savagery, lower barbarism, middle barbarism, upper barbarism, and then the stage of civilization. Okay, and he basically categorizes them with the technological inventions that they have made, these people have made. So he talks about what kind of technological inventions will be available here. So first one, in lower savagery, he says that this stage starts with, and he will also mention about how this stage ends, or with what discovery this stage will end, and where this stage will end will mark the beginning of the other stage. Okay, so in lower savagery, he says that it starts with invention of speech. People are able to speak, okay, communicate through words, okay, and subsistence on forest, nuts and seeds. Invention of speech, subsistence on forest, nuts and seeds. Okay, is it clear to you, or because I have to write this in this board itself, if it's not clear, I have written invention of speech, subsistence on forest and nuts. Okay, now in it will end with discovery of fishing and fire. The moment we discover, the society discover fishing and fire, it will end, and this will mark the beginning of next stage, that is the middle savagery will begin with fishing and fire, and this stage middle savagery will end with discovery of bow, or invention of bow and arrow, and then it will mark the beginning of upper savagery, that is with bow and arrow, and it will end with discovery of pottery. Okay, so which will mark the beginning of lower barbarism, that is pottery से शुरू होगा, and it will end with domestication of plants and animals. That means people start domesticating. They have like gardens in their houses, or they cultivate some plants, or they domesticate animals like cows, buffalo, dogs, or cats for anything. Then the middle barbarism will start with domestication of animals and plants, and it will end with the domestication of, that is invention of iron smelting. Okay, and this will mark the beginning of upper barbarism, that is iron smelting. And upper barbarism will will end with, that is the movement we discover written literature, or we invent written literature, mathematics, counting, numbers, like this will mark the end of upper barbarism, and will begin the beginning of civilization. That means civilization begins when we discover written literature. Okay, and agriculture वगैरह होने लग जाता है. At that point of time civilization will begin. So this is the idea of technological development, and with the technological development, the kind of uh, uh, cultural evolution that will happen from lower savagery to middle, then to upper savagery, and then from lower barbarism to middle barbarism to upper barbarism, and then finally to civilization. And there are the inventions that he has mentioned, that which will mark the beginning of each of the stages of cultural advancement. Is it clear till here? Yes or no? Yes. Clear to all? Are you there, or बस कैमरा बंद करके Are you people sleeping? If that's the case, I will have to ask every one of you to at least on their camera so that I can, on their video feed, so that I can see their faces, whether they are sleeping or doing something else. Okay. So after this, when he talks about like the technological discoveries or inventions which has led to the, the cultural advancement or the stages of cultural advancement, he also mentions various societies in the present time as an example which are at that stage of evolution. So he compares the data that he has collected from various travelogues and other places. So he compares that data and categorize or ranks the society at what cultural level are they are existing. So in the lower savagery, he says that there is no living example. No living example. No society is in the stage of lower savagery right now. Every society is far more beyond or has evolved from lower savagery stage. And no living example of lower savagery stage, any human society is not in that stage. Okay. Then in bow and arrow stage, he talks about a society that is Polynesians. Polynesian is a group of island above Australia, okay, the Pacific region. So he talks about Polynesians. They are in this stage of evolution, okay. Then in the third upper savagery, he says that American Indians of subarctic. Basically, Iroquois, he puts them under upper savagery stage. American Indian of subarctic, okay, Iroquois people. Then in the lower barbarism, he puts a particular North American tribe, that is the Red Indians living near Missouri region. Missouri is a river in US, and he says that Indians living in the Missouri region of US, they are in the lower barbarism stage. Okay. Then in middle barbarism, he says Pueblo Indians of America. That is in the South America, there are a group of people called as Pueblo. Pueblo, Pueblo Indians of South America. Okay. And then in upper barbaric stage, he puts Italian tribes of Rome. And in civilization, people of US, Europe, okay, the advanced countries. So Italian tribe of Rome, he puts in the upper barbaric, and then civilization, like people himself or who have written literature, who know how to read and write and have developed. So ultimately, with this idea, he concludes that what is leading to this evolution of culture. So he says that it is with this invention and discoveries, what will happen is the art of subsistence. Art of subsistence means how they are arranging food for themselves, how they are managing food for themselves. The art of subsistence will increase. Okay. So better tools and technology, the better is the chance for getting food and better is the chance for survival. So as and when with the invention and discovery, what will happen is the art of subsistence will also increase, and this will lead to the cultural advancement. Okay, so just write the statement: the art of subsistence or the successive art of subsistence, the successive art of subsistence was the foundation of, or were the foundation on which human supremacy on earth, human supremacy on earth depended, human supremacy on earth depended, suggesting suggesting great epochs, great eras, great epochs of human progress, great epochs of human progress have been identified, have been identified more or less directly, have been identified more or less directly with enlargement of source of subsistence, more or less directly with enlargement of source of subsistence. So I hope it's clear कि with the invention of technology, what actually happened is the ability to get food or the source of subsistence, that means the amount of food availability, the surety of food availability increases, and this basically will lead to increase in the chances of survival, which will eventually lead to progress of human beings or the progress or advancement of the culture. I hope it's clear to you till now. There is some doubt. Yes. Sir Morgan has further divided savagery and barbarism. So I have basically shown you this table. Lower savagery, middle savagery, upper savagery. This is what he has divided, right? This is what we have discussed till now. Any other doubt want to ask? So I think this is for today. We need to rest here. Okay. And next topic that we will see is continue with Morgan. That is idea of government, idea of family, idea of marriage. Okay. And we'll see this in the next class. I'm going a bit slow till at least 5-6 lectures so that you have the time to digest or grasp whatever we are seeing. Later on, the class will be of more than 2.5 hours. Slowly and slowly, but initially I just don't want you to overburden yourself, and just read it gradually, just revise it, and if you have any doubt, feel free to ask me. There is some doubt, that is. So basically this is the continuation of classical evolutionism. Yes, definitely we are reading classical evolutionism. If you read the syllabus, there are 3 scholars mentioned in classical evolutionism: Tyler, Morgan, and Fraser. We have read about Tyler. The second scholar that we are reading is Morgan. Okay, and the third scholar of classical evolutionism will be Fraser. Okay, and these are the scholars who basically adhere to this school of thought. Okay, and have explained this how the culture has evolved in different ways. Okay, is it clear, Raghav? Okay, so we put a break today. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Please revise your notes and do ask me if you have any doubt. We'll continue in the next class. Bye bye.